Which event are you doing? Late or?
My flight A event.
No, is this flight A or flight B right now?
This is B.
B. What was flight A?
Serious duet acting.
Alright. Fine, and what's B?
Passion. B. This is oratory for me.
Fine. Okay. Good luck.
Thank you. I think you'll be judging me a second time today.
No, I'm this is the only one I'm doing. I'm
Oh.
also coaching a soccer tournament.
Okay.
So I just did the last one, and then I'll be out whenever whoever's next. You. So Joe. You in here next?
It's from 303.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oratory.
I think so. I'm out. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That was the last one.
Yeah, because I saw the name. I knew that wasn't you.
No,
I was
I'm
confused.
Right.
Oh, there's another judge for this.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Can you come to the excuse me? Can you just go use the washroom and be back?
Of course, yeah, I'm not even the judge, so you're just
Yeah.
not here yet. So
Oh, all right.
you got plenty of time.
Oh, all right, thank you. We don't need 3 of us, we'll be done faster. And he's okay.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, I'm gonna watch.
Cool. What are you watching?
Here,
It'll be, this is room 303. You're looking for 303 or what are you looking for?
I'd like just to
Just
watch.
any of them? This one's gonna be oratory next.
Okay, I'll watch.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm your friend, hi, I'm just clearing it. I'm Rob.
I'm most up.
What's up?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're here.
Oh, just take your time.
Try and take my notes.
Yeah.
I'm stressed. Where's your time?
I'm not, what was the last year?
Yeah.
So he's the judge.
Do you know
No, I didn't.
I'm studying for the US history test.
Sure, are you sure?
Are you the time? Oh, okay. Okay, I'll get
Once again, job well done.
Thank you.
Use your strategy.
What's my strategy? Oh, yeah.
I'm joking.
Where's your strategy?
You put your phone in your pocket here, and I'm like, there we go, look at it. Like that. I don't know how to make it work.
Exactly.
I mean, you can perform this actually really simply. Tell me, wait, hold on. You can perform
There's
this.
no way it works.
No, wait, hold on. Let me open up this screen.
Is there anyone missing here?
Tell
Or
me.
is it the only 2 people?
There's 2 people over here that are just in the restroom.
Alright, wait, let me turn the brightness down. It's down all the way. That's how can you honestly see that I'm going for my phone?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
1000%.
Very much so.
Oh, what if I like there's hanging stuff in here? If I like tape it to one of the hanging things, no, then I can't scroll through it.
You spent half this time.
No, it's actually, I'm telling you, oratory is a lot more difficult than it looks. Are you doing oratory?
No.
Oh,
I'm just
you should thank God for that.
You'll be fine.
No, it's actually really hard.
What's easier than oratory?
Everything,
Right.
Really?
in my opinion. Some people say extempt and oratory are the hardest. People like debate which one's harder. But like the difference is extempt, you have to like what you do for that, you write for like a minute. You have like sources and stuff that you have saved on your computer. They give you a topic. You use like your sources and stuff to create just like a 5-minute speech within a minute or a time. With this, you memorize an 8-minute speech off the top of your head. Like not off the top, like you have pre-written it.
Yeah.
You have to memorize it. Like word by
You
word.
have it written, so and you
Sorry.
have so much time to memorize, you know? Because
No,
except,
no.
what if all the sources you've been collecting for months has nothing to do with the topic? Then you have no evidence.
No, they give you like a list of topics. You have to source on all of them.
Also, what if you forget the stuff that you just read and you put together,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
At least
No, you
this
have
you
paper.
memorized.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you have paper.
Yeah,
we
you
don't.
have to read off paper.
But there's like given topics, right?
Except, yeah.
Except, so like what if all the sources you've been collecting on doesn't really relate to any of the topics? Like you don't really have much like.
No, you're only collecting info on the topics. So
Oh.
there's like a
so what's
list
this-
of topics. There's like,
Oh,
but
got
it's a
it.
big list. It's like
And it's also, it could be anything within that topic, right? So if they give you like India, it could be anything within India, right? Or they give you a specific.
yeah, I think it's fairly general, but not that general. Not like just
This is for
India.
example.
Yeah.
I think they'll say like,
No, this is oratory.
yeah, it's
Oh,
oratory.
no, I know.
Oh,
I
yeah.
guess it's
Yeah.
Except they give you 5 regions. So there's South Asia, there's Middle
yeah,
East, there's
yeah.
global environment, there's democracy in crisis, and there's another one which I forgot.
So they're pretty broad.
They're pretty
Yeah.
broad, but then you get a whiff of what you're gonna get because the time parameters are like 3 months before the conference, any like current affairs topic can come up. So in South Asia, I think it's Kashmir and Modi. Middle East, I'm pretty sure they're gonna talk about the Iran attacks and the Saudi all reserves. So it's that kind of
that's
stuff.
pretty.
So you basically you know what it is
You know,
you
yeah.
can expect. It's only the way the questions are phrased.
So then do you think STEM is easier or harder than oratory?
Harder, 100% harder. Because you have 30 minutes to write your entire speech, right?
Mm.
Oratory you practice all throughout the season. So
Yeah, well, if you have a very short season compared to yours,
usually
we have a lot shorter season. Yes.
I'm writing my boards this year, so I didn't practice much this time.
Okay,
You know,
I'm still gonna get.
We all fail together. It's okay.
No. You fail. I fail worse. So,
See, at least you admitted I failed. My friends were too scared to tell me I messed up.
actually, no, you did good on your last one. You had one. I was there. You had one pause that was like maybe 15 seconds.
And then I was like, what?
Yeah, but that was fine though. I literally had one 20-second pause, like one 40-second pause, and then skipped like
Oh
my
my
closest to last paragraph.
Don't
Like,
worry,
You'll be
you'll
fine
get
this
today.
time. I feel like
no, it's I didn't review
Don't
anymore.
worry.
I had an AP US history test today. I didn't have time to review. For this. Like that's more important. That's my GPA. Like I'm not gonna risk that.
You guys have APs right now?
Yeah, I'm taking 5 this year, 7 last year.
3, John.
Am I going first?
You are going first.
Oh, I knew, that's
And
great.
And G.
is going second.
All right,
And
so
Dia is
Yeah.
going third.
I'm just curious. There's no way that like she can pull up my phone.
No. Okay, she knows the answer to that.
I'll shut it down. Just clarification. You'll shut it.
I'll keep it to make sure. I'm kidding.
For generations, students' future success has been determined by one test, the dreaded SAT. According to the NEA, the first standardized achievement tests were developed by Edward Thorndike and his students at Columbia University in 1908 and 1916, specifically in arithmetic, handwriting, drawing, spelling, reading, and language ability. Afterwards, in 1916, the College Board developed comprehensive exams in these 6 subjects, which in turn led to our modern-day ACT and SAT tests. Standardized testing has sparked a controversial debate as to whether they are accurate determinants of a student's academic aptitude or achievement. According to Valerie Strauss, author of the 2018 article titled, for the Washington Post titled, "There are multiple ways to assess students that with high-stakes standardized tests." Between pre-kindergarten and the 12th grade, the average student takes roughly 112 mandatory standardized tests. To what extent does standardized testing exemplify academic aptitude? Standardized testing is a test that is administered and scored in a consistent or standard manner. Academic achievement refers to the level of schooling you have successfully completed and your ability to attain success in your studies. Academic aptitude is acquired capacity and capability for talent. Overall, standardized testing does not correlate to academic achievement or aptitude. According to Thomas Armstrong, Executive Director for the American Institute for Learning and Human Development, standardized testing takes place in an unrealistic educational environment. You can't get up and move around, you can't ask questions, there's no communication or collaboration, there's no use of educational devices or references, there's a time constraint. Now, as Armstrong states, how often does the real world look like this? Penitentiaries share a striking resemblance. And shouldn't education prepare us for the real world? Clearly, standardized testing doesn't measure this. We need to prepare students for the real world by focusing attention on attributes necessary for success in the future, such as critical thinking and communication, and assessing these attributes accordingly. According to Kira Goldring, content writer and contributor for The Perspective magazine, a two-sided unbiased source. Because standardized testing is so important in today's society, a trend of teaching to the test has become evident in the US, which limits educators' emphasis on instructing subjects that will enable students to perform beyond the standardized tests. However, research shows that students are more engaged when concentrated on learning rather than on exam performance. She also states that attributes such as creativity, critical thinking, resilience, persistence, and motivation are altogether attributes of a student who exemplifies academic accomplishment and are extremely insightful to your university accomplishment as well as overarching achievement. Valerie Strauss, reporter for education and foreign affairs for the Washington Post, claims that exams drive guidance, so we need to remain alert to the extent in which exams are driving this guidance. The outsized accentuation on test scores has driven guidance towards things with one clear right answer, with an attempt to prepare students for what really counts, the standardized test, of course. So Alfie Kahn, a cultural critic, put it this way. Studies of students of different ages have found a statistical association between high scores on standardized tests and relatively shallow thinking. So by assessing subjects that they cannot properly evaluate, standardized testing is preparing students to look for the quick, easy, and obvious answer. This irrational one right answer system is taking away from students' ability to be educated to a greater extent and use more creativity and critical thinking to tackle more in-depth concepts, as well as find multiple ways of solving problems. Standardized testing has limited educators on being able to instruct in multiple subjects that push students to benefit more in their specific passions, where the only subjects they're instructed to teach and prioritize are ones that are beneficial to your SAT or ACT scores, specifically in English and mathematics. Students who can excel in other subjects such as history, art, sciences, economics, and psychology are told that their passions are not a form of achievement. So where does this leave us? With the youth, students, and future generations of creators and innovators facing the harmful issue of standardized testing defining our predicted university success, or a possibility to change the education system in order to achieve better results for future generations. The solution is eliminating standardized testing as a whole and focusing more on the education the students is receiving. According to Rebecca Safier, a contributor for Prep Scholar, a recent trend of less reliance and even nullification of standardized test scores is coming into fruition in the US. Some extremely prestigious schools have gone test optional, meaning they do not require the submission of an SAT or ACT score. Specifically, the University of Chicago and George Washington University, where other schools consider it extremely flexible, like New York University, Colby College, and Colorado College. The youth are the future of our world, and if all we're assessing them on is A, B, C, or D in order to predict their future success, then our future is bleak, and our future is in a state of despair. And needs to be recovered. Thank you.
I'm just gonna take just 1 minute to write a full notes and then.
I'm sorry, I have a clarification. Are the time parameters for the event 5 minutes 30 seconds or 6 minutes 30 seconds to 8 minutes?
It says here, I think 5 to 8, 5:30 to 8.
All right.
Let me just make sure about 100%. 5 to 8. G.
Pin drop silence, pay attention. The information you are to receive, your future depends on it. Stop daydreaming. Imagine living in this box. This box of routine algorithms, definitions to be memorized, a world of mark schemes, and examinations. We've all lived in this box for a large part of our lives. Some of us still do. As we start to think within these boundaries and set parameters, this box stifles our imagination, our creativity. I've been thinking about this for a long time. How come I accept knowledge as it is presented to me and never challenge it like I used to? When writing the speech itself, why was I constantly stuck at a dead end? Was I fearful of how you may receive it? It is in times like these that we doubt whether we all are creative. Maybe creativity belongs only to a select few. Well, Pablo Picasso once said every child is born an artist. The problem is to remain an artist once you grow up. Was I also losing the artist in me? Are you? As I dug in deeper, Picasso was not the only one to voice my concern. In a NASA study, a set of 1,600 people were tested on their creativity over a 20-year span. The same children at the age of 5 were tested in regular periods at the age of 10, 15, and 25. The study concluded that 98% of 5-year-olds fell in the highly creative range. 30% were in this creative genius category as 10-year-olds, 12% as 15-year-olds, and a staggering 2% as adults. How does our creative spark die off? Where does the artist disappear? And why can't we afford to no longer go this way? That is what I would like to talk to you about today. The message is clear. As children grow up, they seem to grow out of creativity. It should surely not come off as a surprise then that 78% of CEOs cite creativity to be the number one shortage in their companies. So, how does this shortage occur? Well, on their hunt for scientists and innovators, the NASA study confirmed that our education system is responsible for this. Under the current culture of education, students are educated out of their creative capacities. How, you ask? Currently, knowledge retention is still prized over original thinking. Professor David Eagleman asserts that we are still stuck in the rut of the Industrial Revolution. Our curriculum is standardized, the ringing bells mark a change of factory shifts, and students are fed knowledge that most seem to regurgitate in examinations. As a judge in this forensics round, what brings you here to take the time aside and listen to us speak? This may be more than just a competition for you. Perhaps you too believe in the power of creativity. For that, I applaud you. Thank you for your support. Nevertheless, this room of educators and students who encourage original thinking represents a minority. Rana Dajani, a Jordanian lecturer and university professor, states that current progress, even in the Arab world, is an embarrassing disappointment. Knowledge, information, and theories are presented as indisputable facts, and this creates students who struggle with independent thinking. But what are the implications on our future? A Harvard Business Review article titled The Future of Human Work is Imagination, Creativity, and Strategy confirms that technology is going to replace people with jobs. Few industries, if any, will be untouched. Knowledge workers will not escape. We need to rethink the principles upon which students are educated, because in less than 20 years, standardized tests will have no value. They cultivate these knowledge workers. What differentiates us, even secures us, will be our creativity. At the end of the day, can we have original ideas? Creative jobs have a 9% potential of being overtaken by machines, the lowest percentage there is, because creativity equips us to adapt to new situations as they arise. With the degree of uncertainty facing us, our world is engulfed in a pace of rapid change. From the disastrous effects of climate change to poverty to ever-growing war, we need to approach these complex issues with bold solutions and fresh perspectives. Quoting educator Sir Ken Robinson, creativity now is as important in education as literacy, and we should treat it with the same status. There is a famous story that I've always found insightful. From school, young Thomas Edison came home to his mother, handing her a letter. Teary-eyed, his mother read it aloud. Your child is a genius. This school is too small for him. It does not have enough teachers for training him. So please, teach him yourself. After years of nurturing Edison's talent for mechanics and chemical experiments, his mother, Nancy Matthews Elliott, passed away. It was then, when sorting through her things, Edison found an old-folded letter. It read, Your son, Thomas Edison, is mentally disturbed. He is hereby expelled from attending school. Thomas Edison was one of the greatest inventors the world had seen. Nancy Matthews Elliott saw her child for the hope he was and his creative capacity for the richness it had. With that belief, she changed the world. I have faith that our schools can place its belief in our imagination, just how Eliot did, just how you do so today, and just how the revered author J.K. Rowling did so before her advent of Harry Potter. J.K. Rowling's parents and teachers saw her imaginative genius as an amusing personal quirk that would never pay a mortgage or secure a pension. So they hoped she would take up a vocational degree instead. Yet Rowling had a strong belief in the power of imagination and resisted taking the conventional, sought after road. Little did her parents know that her creativity would cast generations of readers under her spell. To nurture the Rowlings and Edisons of the world, we must excite and awaken the power of imagination in every child. We can do just that. There is wonderful work taking place where teachers are thriving when students are intellectually alive. Mind Drive is only one example, where the projects hit news headlines. An alternative education program for troubled youngsters. It attempts to bring back their love for learning. Recently, groups of students created an electric car that runs on social media's tweets and likes. What's interesting to me is these are called alternative education. Because if we did all that, we wouldn't need an alternative, would we? Not every school would look like mine, right? And not every school should. With you being the educator, you are the visionary. You have the greatest power to create change. The power to support students to think outside the box. But to think outside the box, you must envision ways to open it first. The road to the future begins in classrooms of today. Let us treat every child for the miracle they are. Let us celebrate the gift of human imagination. In turn, let us open our future to wider possibilities. Because the best way to predict the future is to create it. Thank you.
The name of my speech is Happily Never After. Just in case.
Oh, were we supposed to give the names?
I can take them from you. I usually write either the name that I hear from you or the name that I come up with based on what you said.
Okay, mine was thinking colon in boxes.
Thinking.
The colon in boxes, like in space.
I'm gonna be completely honest, I forgot what
What do you want to call it?
I thought, wait, what do I want?
Just like a short title.
I think it was like standardized testing, a playground review, plague infected review, something like that.
Alright.
I forgot what I did.
Second one sounds better.
Yeah.
Yeah, plague infected. Let's go with that one.
Infecting, you said?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Here.
And they lived happily ever after. The end. Every night, as a blanket of stars ornament the sky, millions of little boys and girls all over the world fall asleep to the inexplicable sense of satisfaction, knowing that brave knights had rescued their beautiful princesses, that the earth was safe from demons. I vividly recall being tucked into my covers every evening in anticipation of my father arriving home from work, reading me a story, and kissing me goodnight. Sadly enough, this tradition began to fade away as the pains of maturing overtook the satiety fairy tales gave me. The seemingly lamentable aging came hand in hand with actuality, poles apart from the fiction I spent my childhood dreaming about. Real life princesses are those who use their voices to evoke change in this patriarchal society, where stepmothers are less than nasty, more nurturing, inspiring, and ones to be grateful for. Where lying can be detrimental, and unfortunately, not all our wishes can be fulfilled by the swish of a wand. French author Edmund de Goncourt's famous quote, "People don't like true and simple, they like fairy tales and humbug," certainly provokes thought. Are these fairy tales truly an asset to one's wit? Or do they simply divert a child's creativity towards an ideal, misshaped fantasy they confuse with reality? Well, listen up closely, everybody. Not so long ago, in a world not so far away, people have been acquainted with the idea that fairy tales distort a young mind's perception of reality. Now, whether or not the story has a happy ending, only time will tell. Cinderella? Snow White? What are those? An illness? Author of the global phenomenon Harry Potter, Joanne K. Rowling brought to light how some of these fairy tales set unreasonably high standards for beauty and appeal. How unfortunate is it that only 2% of the women worldwide consider themselves to be beautiful? That when I close my eyes, the word princess immediately translates to a fancy ball gown and a perfect body, not a kind heart and a confident spirit. Imagine a little girl holding up her mirror and looking into it, unable to find skin as white as snow, or lips as red as blood, or a voice so splendid that the birds chirp along to her songs. Cinderella and Snow White, two iconic personalities in the history of Western literature, made their first appearances in the age-old Brothers Grimm publishing. They have been adapted several times since. Cinderella, a young lass that was abandoned by her father, then left with the vices of her evil stepmother and evil stepsisters and treated as a servant. Then rescued by her fairy godmother, sent to the royal ball where she fell in love with the prince and abandoned him as the prince struck 12. And she was rediscovered by the prince on his town-wide search for the girl with the matching glass slipper. Snow White, on the other hand, was sent into exile by her evil stepmother for conjuring jealousy of her beauty. Then rescued by seven dwarfs, then sent into a coma by her shape-shifting evil stepmother, and finally rescued by the Prince Charming. Besides the fact that both of these women encompass the ability to talk with animals, they share a common enemy and a common hero. That is the wicked stepmother and the beloved Prince Charming. Similar tropes can be viewed in other fairy tales, including Hansel and Gretel and the Ugly Duckling, whose acceptance into society depends on his appearances. From the Brothers Grimm to the internet era, our approach as a race towards conceptualized characterization has certainly failed to cope with time. A study published by Professor Sarah Coyne of Brigham Young University, Utah, on June 20th, 2016, assessed the impacts of Disney on 198 preschoolers. While 96% of the girls and 87% of the boys were aware of Disney's enterprises, only 4%, as opposed to 91% of the girls, played with Disney's merchandise on a weekly basis. That too with the severe disparity of feminine toys like tea sets and dolls, as opposed to action figures and cars. Now think about this. Aren't our men entitled to this anti-feminist ideology because of the physical strength and social upliftment we choose to make it important for them? Think about this. Don't our girls get it all their lives? The study also stated that, quote-unquote, girls with worse body esteem seem to engage with more Disney princesses over time, perhaps seeking out role models for what they consider to be beautiful. Think about your sons, your boys. No wonder our men are conditioned this way. All their lives, men have been fostered in an environment that promotes violence, where aggression is mistaken for bravery, and somehow the sense of pride is enforced as masculinity. Ariel Silver, a student of Antioch University, Los Angeles, submitted a case study of a troubled stepmother in 2015. Laura explained that she had negative, Disney-induced associations with the word stepmother that overrided her experiences as a stepmother for her children. Winding the same struggle back 30 years, 1985, Julie Hubbard, then subordinate to the US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, married Henry Hubbard and his 3 children. The independent, bright, capable young woman was left in shambles in the first couple of months of her matrimony. She recalls the first Christmas with the children, where they completely disregarded her attempts to bring the family together. But who can blame the children, right? Children are innocent and they are unaware of the repercussions of their actions. Mirror, mirror on the wall, what has caused this after all? Well, it is the ugly archetypes that are enforced by the fairy tales and literature these children are exposed to. These boys and girls were blinded by the concept of an evil stepmother that prevented them from recognizing this capable young woman's efforts. Now, although I wholeheartedly recognize the efforts of contemporary media to break away from these stereotypes that they've set, the efficacy and the ability of the media to reinstate these archetypes is certainly questionable. Productions like Brave 2012 and Frozen 2013 certainly do set an example. Elsa, Anna, and Merida, 3 female protagonists who are certainly different from the other princesses we've seen. They are their own allies and their own enemies. They do certainly break away standards of grace and praxis. Now, although these fairy tales do impart certain valuable morals through a multitude of characters and plots, it is important to recognize the distinction between fantasy and reality. It is important to recognize that the tropes surrounding evil stepmothers, or the need of a man to save a woman, or the standards of appeal and beauty do not translate in the real world. With this being said, all the little boys and girls all over the world can dream on with the distinction in mind of fantasy and reality. So, should we live just happily ever after? No, we should live happily informed thereafter. Thank you.
All right, guys, thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Let me just say that you're amazing for even trying to do this. So that's awesome.
That's good.
When's our next show? It's like right now, right?
I think you're gonna be judging me for the second
Am I?
time. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You're in round 3.
No, please. I think.
Or is it round? Yeah,
No.
right. See that?
See you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like 7:30.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
See you.
See you.
Take care.
You too.
Ready?
Okay.